Everyone, in just a second, I'm going to be introducing to you author Tessa Fontaine, and I am so happy that I get to talk with her today. I've been trying to get a hold of her for like a month because her book, it's a long title, let me read it. The Electric Woman, a memoir in death-defying acts. This book is so good. There is a reason why Amazon called it one of their book for May. It is absolutely one of the best memoirs I've read so far. I can't say enough good things about it. I really can't. There is a reason, and you should see. Wait in a minute. You're going to see the cover. Oh my god, the cover is so good. I have it on my Kindle, so it's not gonna look that great. But anyway, so I am so excited to speak with her today. And if you love memoirs, please listen. If you don't know if you want to buy it or not, watch the video and listen to her talk because I've seen some videos of her. She is amazing. So everyone, here is Tessa. Hi everyone, I am so excited because I am speaking with author Tessa Fontaine, and she has a brand new book out this month, and it is called, and I'm reading it from her poster, it's The Electric Woman, and it's a memoir, and she has the book right in front of her. She's going to hold up because I love this cover. Oh my gosh, it's so awesome. And the moment I saw this on Instagram, I was like, I want to talk to her. I didn't even read it. I saw the cover and I'm like, yes.
They did their job. That's great.
They did do their job. And you know what? I was reading on Amazon. It was like, because after I read the book, I go back and I saw Book of the Month. You're getting Barnes & Noble, Amazon Book of the Month. How exciting is that for your first novel?
Yeah, it's been really, really exciting. There's been some really kind coverage and lots of lists and stuff, and so it's been really exciting. Yeah.
And I used to do, I don't have time anymore, but I used to do like books I want to read. I do a video. I started it back in April and I only kept up with it for a little bit, but this book showed up and I was like, everybody, I want to read this book. And then I did, I got to, so I was really happy about that. But this is a memoir and I've read a handful of memoirs recently. This is by far my favorite. It isn't just that your life is exciting, because anybody can have an exciting life, but it's the way you wrote it. It was absolutely perfect. It really was.
I really appreciate that.
The timeline changes. I don't know how you decided like when to break them or when to put them. Did you kind of outline it out and then piece it together?
Yeah, it was really tricky actually. There are kind of two main narrative threads. There's the story of traveling with the Last American Sideshow, and then there's also the thread of my family story and my mom's illness and this trip that they take. So the sideshow story is kind of the general, arc of the book, and so the book starts essentially at the beginning of the sideshow season and ends at the end, which is 5 months later. So that was really easy to use as a basis for the length of time the book would take place. And then as I started like puzzling through which of the family pieces to put in, I tried actually like outlining it and being much more careful with the patterning, and it didn't really work as I was doing that. And so I started a little bit more kind of intuitively making connections, and like if there would be a thematic connection in one section, and I would jump back to something that connected to my family. And then once I had a number of those things laid out, then I sort of looked at, zoomed back again and looked at where there was maybe too much sideshow story in a row, and then that could take maybe then some sideshow history and then some family history and then some present moment family. So it was kind of just like a big messy puzzle that I was always shifting around a little bit, and it really helped to have an editor working at that point on an outside eye helping me to try to figure out how to make that happen. Yeah.
You're such an amazing writer. Like I just fell in love with I felt like I went through it with you, and you're so normal looking that people think when they read this, they're going to be like, oh my God, what does she look like? What did she do?
Yeah.
Because I have okay, I'm a lot old. I could be your mom. Okay, I'm a lot older. I'm 53. But in my prior life, before I was a mom, I worked at a law firm, and we back in the 80s, right?
Hmm.
And we had these clients that were the carnival people, and we
Oh,
called them the carnies. And when they would come into town, they'd have to sign all the, we took care of all their business stuff, and so they'd have to come in and sign, and like we used to make like a day of it. We were like, the carnies are coming. It's like one of our
I love
favorites.
it. That's
Because
great.
they're like crazy but weird but normal, but I mean, they were just so much fun. They like livened up the office a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely all those things. I mean, carnies and show people and people that work the rides and the games. It's a really lively group of folks, really fun. A
Yeah.
lot of people who are kind of outsiders in a way. A lot of folks who,
Right.
were kind of didn't fit in other parts of their lives for whatever reason. Maybe they had criminal histories and they couldn't get a more standard job. Maybe they had, different substance abuse or mental health problems. Just people that kind of had a hard time finding a place. And then they kind of all came together and formed this like ragtag group, family group of people. And that was one of the things I think that was the most amazing about being out on the road with them, because there is extreme loyalty, but also like because you're all living in the back of the semi truck, it's like it's so cramped and it's so intense that everyone both loves each other so intensely and hates each other, kind of simultaneously, like sort of in the way that a family maybe does.
Right.
Yeah, but it was but meeting all the carnies was really amazing. I didn't realize how many carnies now are not American. Like we bring in people from all over the world to work at our carnivals, which was a real surprise to me. And then just getting to know the country through the way that the carnivals, through the differences between the carnivals across the country. That was a really interesting way of, seeing, I don't know, rural and urban areas and people and the kinds of families that would come in different places. And it was really cool. It's really fun.
We have in where I'm from in Allentown, Pennsylvania. So I don't know if you were there or heard of it, but we have a fair every year that's huge. And
Mm.
then they have like this carnival like row, I want to say. They bring in a carnival. And I don't know if it's the same carnival. I have no idea, but it's been there forever, the fair. But I used to always get scared as a kid of going down the carnival row because,
Oh.
the signs of like the different people and you're like, just but I remember my parents used to always take us down that row, and you'd be like looking at these poster size of these, come and see, have man, have something, and like all these signs, and it was like when I was reading the book, I kept thinking back to that. I'm like, oh yeah, remember how scared you were of those people because they looked like you'd have to go behind a curtain though, like you'd have to like come in and see, it wasn't like they weren't out. So
Yeah, yeah. It's really, I mean, I love hearing stories of people who actually like remember going to some of the sideshows because, they don't really exist anymore. So it's really great to
right,
hear about. And also like to think about, I mean, part of what they're playing on is that fear. They're playing on this fear that people have of seeing someone who's so different from themselves. And
right,
it's like this kind of interior fear, I think, that
right,
um that you might always be, like there's fear in like people who are, seem to be like, purportedly part animal or aren't clearly a man or a woman or aren't clearly like of the size that we can, kind of understand. And so that's part of the presentation is like it's a little bit frightening, it's a little bit amazing, it's dangerous, it's beautiful. So it like all of those things together I think are what make it so incredible.
Well, I love how you say in the beginning of the book, there, what's the trick to breathe, to swallowing fire or whatever. It's like there is no trick. You just do it. Like
Yeah.
it's like, oh my god, you really do? Like there's no trick.
I know. It was so disappointing to learn that was true of so many acts, It's like, oh, there's got to be a way that you swallow a sword. There's got to be something that you do that, the sword collapses or like, I don't know, something happens. And it was astonishing to learn that there just aren't tricks. You just do the thing that it looks like you're doing. And you just learn to withstand the pain. Like that's what the trick actually is that you learn to withstand the pain, which is such a terrible thing to learn. And it's such an apt metaphor for life too, right? Where like
Right.
you just have to withstand the pain. And It sucks. It would be so much better if there was.
There actually was a trick. Okay, but I think the most interesting thing was the snake thing because as I'm reading the section, and I don't want to talk too much about it because I really want people to go and read it like I did. But I mean, it's not you were out there saying it, so it's like I know people are out there talking about it. But I mean, to me, like that, I could not do that. I really, but you were the same way, so I was like, well, if she did it, I don't know, but I don't think so.
Yeah, that was really terrifying.
I don't know.
It took a long time to get over the like how fearful I felt holding the snakes and just like your body's natural like
Reaction.
reaction. Yeah,
Yeah.
and your body sort of being like, just get this thing away from me, just get it off of me. And I think when you have that strong of a reaction, it took a long time for me to. I mean, I was holding the snake for many hours a day, and so
Oh yeah.
I think I got over it quicker than maybe other people who aren't.
You had no choice.
Yeah, I have a choice, right? It was just
Like
what I
even
had
the night
to do.
before you knew you had to do it, it was like, I guess I have to do this.
Yeah, yeah,
But
exactly.
I mean, was it like a dream where you just like, I really want to go do this? I really want to go see what this carnival thing, like, I don't know, because people say I'm going to run away. I mean, especially my, it's like I'm going to run away and join the carnival or join, like something crazy, and it's kind of like an escape from reality because you are in this like bubble of a world, and it's a
Yeah,
lot of hard work. Like you talked about all, I had no idea how hard you work. Like you work
yeah,
tearing up, tearing down. I
yeah.
mean, it's a
It's so
lot.
hard.
So hard.
It's true. Yeah, it's a ton of work. Yeah, I mean, I think something that's so interesting about running away with the circus is like it's like a trope almost, like a
Right,
cliche, right? Like I'm gonna go run with the circus,
right.
and so I think something that's like that felt amazing about doing that was that I was kind of like living out this cliche and finding out that actually it is not kind of the glamorous idea
Right.
that you think it is, but also that I think that idea is applicable for everyone, like whether or not they actually want to go away with the circus.
Right.
Like it just becomes a placeholder for like, what is the thing that you have always wanted to do and you haven't done, or what is the thing that sounds like the most kind of like romantic or beautiful or wild thing to you, and is that a thing that you can make space for in your life? And
Right.
so I really like that it's actually totally translatable. Like it's not just a one time kind of thing.
Yeah, and
But yeah, the snakes were definitely hard to get over, but harder than that really was actually just like being out on the road. I mean, as you're talking about how difficult and
right.
exhausting the hours are and the physical labor, that was really what was hard. Like eventually all of the acts you can, you know how to do them, you do them over and over and it's fine, but sustaining the energy for performing and the excitement for it, and like just being out there day after day, that was what got really really harrowing and exhausting.
Yeah, and you did it for one season, right? In
Yes.
2013. Did you have a desire to keep doing it? Like did you or you were you just like I did that and you were able to just walk away?
I was when I left, I was so just ready. I just like had this fantasy that I couldn't stop thinking about of being somewhere with a door that I could close. I just like couldn't stop thinking about it, about what an
Mm.
amazing moment that would be. So I was really ready to be done when the season was over. Um, but I was also, I don't know, I mean, I also kind of, like you get really used to, I think, being on stage all the time. And like I never got over when you would be on stage and you would look down at the audience and there would be this row of kids up front and they would just be like staring
Oh.
wide eyed, and looking so astonished. And that never got old. It never got
Oh.
tiring. It was always wonderful. So, pretty soon after I left the sideshow, one of the bosses called me up and was like, I know that probably aren't you probably aren't going to come back again, but just listen to this idea I have for next year. And so I was immediately like, oh, okay, that sounds pretty great. He was like talking about a trapeze act, and I am not a trapeze performer, but suddenly like, oh, sure, maybe I could be that next. And so I didn't end up doing it, but yeah, I mean, I'm really glad to have done it, and I feel like I can save the sideshow now for people who are actual performers and who want to have that life out on the road. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I think it was great, like practice for what you're doing now, because you're doing your book tours. You got to be out there talking to people, and you're like comfortable in front of people. And a
Hmm.
lot of authors aren't, because they're sitting in a room writing. And when they have to go out on book tour, they're like, oh, I got to talk to people like about what I just wrote. And because I talk to a lot of authors, and even just doing this is hard for them.
Oh,
Like even
yeah.
just being on video, they're like, can we just talk on the phone? Can we just,
Mhm.
because they're just so used to being in a closed room. But
Ah,
you have had like experience being out there, so it's not hard for you, you know?
yeah, yeah, no, it's true. I was actually just talking to my editor this morning about how, in some way, being out on book tour is kind of like a very mild version of being in the sideshow. Because in some way, you are saying the same things over and over again, right? Like,
Right,
people ask kind of similar questions, like good questions, but kind of similar questions, and you're
right.
reading the same passages sometimes, and so in some ways it's really repetitive, but at the same time, like, you're with new people every time, and there are new questions, and each time you are excited to be there, and you want to make that enthusiasm clear. So every time you're sort of performing as if it's the first time you're doing it or something. So it's a kind of a fine balance, much like the sideshow, of being,
Yeah.
seasoned, knowing what you're going to say, but also making it authentic and in the moment and stuff like that. But on book tour, I get to have a door that closes, and a
Yes.
bed and a shower, and
That's
so it's
right.
very glamorous.
And
Yeah,
you don't have to set the table up, and you don't have to like put the thing. It's like it's all
yeah,
very pretty easy.
very easy. No snakes involved. Yeah,
No
very
snakes,
easy.
just your books. Well, I did pick out one of my favorite quotes, and there it is. I was like, where did I write it? I'm not at home, so everything's just weird.
Oh,
It says, sometimes you just have to make the best choice for you, even if it's not the pretty one. And I
mm,
love that, because like I said, you're young, and you're, like that's just a real life lesson. Like having to make choices, and deciding what is good for you. And I felt like that throughout this whole book. I felt like like you had to grow up a lot.
mhm.
Not just with the circus, but everything you were dealing with your mom. And and it took a lot, and you were able to put it in words and put it in a book. And I'm sure that you have gotten lots of responses from people that are like, oh my gosh, you said so many things that I needed to hear, you know? So I think that
Yeah.
that's the best part for you.
You. Thanks for saying that. Yeah. I think that's what makes the writing and the being on tour and publishing and stuff feel so meaningful. I think is when it feels like you've really connected with the reader. In fact, not too long ago, a woman came to an event and came and introduced herself afterwards, and she is a really young woman who had a massive stroke a number of years ago and has been just in this really slow recovery process. And like that was kind of a person that I didn't even consider that this book would be, maybe helpful for a person who
Right.
was recovering from a stroke. And so, I think that some gifts like that have been a really wonderful and unexpected part of having the book be out in the world, is that, it does connect with people, hopefully on the best days, it can connect with
No,
people. And,
really.
and that feels really exciting. And also, like, kind of reminds me of the responsibility, I think, of being a writer, um to telling your own story as truthfully as possible. Because sometimes I try to write something, and it's like I'm trying to say something, or try,
Right.
right, then the
It's
thing
too
you're
hard.
writing, it
Mm-hmm.
falls flat, like it just
Yeah.
doesn't work. And so the more, just like brutally, bloodily, I'm writing out my own story, my mom's story, and the story of these other performers, then the more that seems to actually connect with folks who can, find the universal and the very particular. So yeah, it's been a good reminder as I'm, working on a new book now, to kind of be like, you gotta go all the way in.
That's what I was going to tell you. Like I've read a lot of memoirs, and I know like I'll have like a life, somebody, like in your instance, it's like somebody's gone through a mom that's been sick, and then they'll pick up your book, right? So I picked up a book that I thought I'd relate to, and this woman just didn't go there. Like you
Mm,
leave the book going, she didn't go there, and you can tell when they don't want to,
yeah,
which I understand. But then it's almost like, but don't write it until you can, you know
yeah,
don't write it down, because as a reader, and that's what I felt like with this book. I kept looking, I'm like, how old is she? Like, she is so good, she's really going there, she is not holding anything back about any of it, like. And that's why I think that's why everyone is loving this book so much, is because you just go there, and you can, and as a reader, everybody can tell. You can't fake it, people will know, they just
yeah.
will. You know?
People know. I mean, readers are smart. Like that's the, people
Yeah.
people are good readers. People want to know. I think like knowing also the sort of kind of ugly things we've done in our lives, it kind of gives it makes sort of the things that
Yes.
each the readers have done, all of the rest of us have done, feel more like you can forgive yourself for that too. And
Exactly. Like you're not alone. Like you're not
yeah,
this awful person alone.
yeah. There's this there's this piece of advice that I can't actually remember who told me this years ago, which makes me crazy. But and I think about this a lot when writing, especially personal nonfiction and memoir and stuff. And it's if you're gonna throw if you're going to throw anyone under the bus in your writing, right? If you're going to write something about them that's harmful or painful or something, you always have to throw yourself further under the bus, right? So, like,
I love that.
anytime
Yeah.
you're going to, yeah, I love it too. Anytime you're going to sort of say, like, here are these things that this person did that was not great, like, you have to have examined that fully in yourself first. And I think that it's a more honest reading experience, and it's also a more honest writing experience, and it made me actually have to figure out how to be kind of a better person, because I would be thinking about some people who I maybe like had kind of a one-sided opinion of, and then as I was writing the book, think like, well, actually, like, what are the ways that I have to think about my own culpability in this relationship,
Right.
or think about like what led them in their life to this moment where they did this thing that I didn't like. And so, in kind of thinking about people as characters, even though this was really unintuitive for me, like,
Right.
as thinking about them as characters, I had to find more empathy than I had maybe in my just like regular life. So that was a surprising part of the process.
Yeah. No, now I'm thinking back to that book and I was like, you know what? I think that's what they didn't do. Because if
Uh,
you're going to write a book, a memoir, and you're going to blame, a parent, a sibling, a friend, or whatever, if you don't bring yourself into that,
yeah.
then you're not learning anything, right?
Right. Right. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
you're kind of like
Totally.
not, and you're not teaching anything either. And
Yeah.
and even though I'm 53, I learned so much from this book, and you're so much younger, and I learned. I mean, you taught me a lot of things, and as I'm like taking pictures, because I'm reading it in my Kindle, and I'm taking pictures of the pages.
Oh, that's so kind of you.
So that they're on my phone, so that I'm like, oh, I'm gonna need that. Oh, I'm gonna need that. Like every time I read that. So
Oh,
there
I
were
love that.
plenty of quotables. But all right, so you are writing another book. I want
I
to
am.
talk. You are. Oh, that's so awesome. I was really happy to hear that, because I was like, well, sometimes with memoirs, they're like, well, that's it until something else happens.
Yeah, well, I'm writing a novel, so I'm working on fiction right now. I thought that I would try to write something that was just like totally different from this book, and of course, like, everyone has their own obsessions, right? So some of the maybe thematic stuff I'm thinking about are it's still involved in this book, but it's fiction. It's coming from a totally different angle, and
Oh,
it's
I love
taking
that.
place. I think the one kind of familiarity point maybe from this book is in the Electric Woman, you learn a little bit about this town where I grew up, Woodacre, and it's kind of full of former hippies that had moved out from San Francisco and kind of founded this little community there. And so this novel I'm working on is set in kind of a fictionalized version of that town. So I was actually just back out there on this book tour, and it was really fun to kind of walk around and ask
Be
folks who
there.
have lived there a long time questions about some of their neighbors, and it's a really interesting place to think about this story unfolding. So that's been really fun.
Yeah. Are you liking writing a novel? Is that fun?
It is. It was so hard right at first for like a few months actually, because the thing about nonfiction is, like, even though it's still challenging to figure out how to tell
Right.
your story, kind of what the story is. You
Right.
know the parameters of the story. So when I switched over to fiction, I was just like, what happens next? How am
You
I
have to like
supposed to
make
know
it
what
up.
happens?
Right. You got
Yeah,
to make these
yeah.
people up.
It was right, and it was like really stressful to think about the fact that I had to just make it up. So it took some more transition time than I thought it would, but now I'm liking it, and now it feels like it's kind of just like exploding out in all of these directions, and so that feels fun.
Well, I can't wait. I mean, I know the second book, when you've had a book this successful as your first one, the second one feels daunting, but I hope it doesn't for you. Like, I hope, since it's a different genre, I think it'll be, I think that's good too, because then you can't really compare, the
Yeah.
two of them.
Yeah.
But like I said, you can have an interesting life and still have a boring memoir. Like that, the part about this is that you had an interesting life and you can write about it so well. So it was like the perfect. I was like, no wonder everybody's saying that to read this book, and I'm just so happy for you. Barnes and Noble had it up, like in April. They were like, book to read in May, book to read in May, and it just kept coming up every time I was there. So.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's been a really lucky reception so far, and it's fun to also just get to, I don't know, pay such close attention to other books that are coming out right now, and it feels pretty amazing to like
so many
to
books.
be, yeah,
I know.
practice against other great books in the bookstores. I'm like, ooh, I'm touching Michael Ondaatje. Oh my god!
I know my book. Look at it. It's like you are. It's like my book is touching.
It's
like
yeah,
on the same shelf. It's so awesome.
Right.
Let's show everybody the cover again because I want to show them because it is amazing. Oh my gosh, they did such a good job. I mean, I love the colors and the fire, and it all just makes sense.
Yeah,
it all makes sense.
Thank you.
So
there's a really great graphic they have online of the woman right here. She flies out the fire, flies across. It's really cool.
That.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'll get to see it. I can't wait. But anyway, thank you so much, Tessa. I can't wait for your next book. I mean, you know where to find me. I will read it and then I'll post it on the day it releases. I love doing that. But it was so much fun.
It was really good to talk to you. Thanks so much for your great question.
Yeah, and I'll have all of Tessa's everywhere. Everywhere she is on social media will be listed underneath here, along with the Amazon button that pushes you right over to Amazon. One click, and you have her book. And I love that one click because I do it all the time. But anyway, thank you, and so much success on your book tour. I saw you're going to be everywhere. Your website will be listed underneath here. If anybody wants to see where she's going to be, you are going to be a lot of places coming up. So they can come out and see you and get a signed book, which is awesome too.
Yes, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm so happy that I got to talk with her. Wasn't she awesome? I knew she would be. You know how you can read a book and you're like, I just know the author is going to be amazing. I just knew it, especially since it was a memoir. And there was so much to talk about, and I just didn't want to go there because I want you to go out there and read it yourself. I mean, she really goes into her mom's illness and everything involved with that, but I wanted to keep the interview light and fun, and and she was so much fun, and she's so young. She has such a career ahead of her. I mean, her debut novel is everywhere, and I am so thrilled for her. So thank you, Tessa. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Like I said, all of her links will be listed underneath here.